It may take away doctor is not necessarily Vidyasagar is fine.
Okay. Oh, okay. Let me do that.
All right. Okay. Oops. I lost you.
Okay,
It's
you
okay.
should be able to see me.
What people, you are from Kerala?
No, I am from Tamil Nadu.
Oh, Tamil Nadu.
Yeah.
Where in Tamil Nadu?
Okay. Are you familiar with you heard about um Raya Vellore?
Huh?
Velur?
Vellore, yeah. Vellore,
Velur.
yeah.
Yeah, there is a
Medical.
CMC hospital is also there. That is one of the well-known hospital there.
Oh, of course, Vellore Medical College. I've been there.
Yeah,
I've been there, yeah.
yeah. So I'm near,
Oh, I see. Okay.
like 60 kilometers from there.
Oh, okay.
Place called Vaniambadi. Okay. Now,
Some person, Anu Joshi is there. Shobha is coming.
Good evening. Good evening. And good evening.
good evening.
Good evening.
That's Shobha.
Sorry, did you say something to me?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying hello, that's all.
Oh, okay, okay. No problem. Sure, sure.
Who's that one?
Some, I don't know her. Miss Joshi? Hello, Anu?
Yeah, yes.
Where are you from, Anu?
I'm from Columbus. I'm in Marion. I'm in
Chicago
Switches,
area, huh?
area near Columbus. Yeah,
Columbus.
Ohio. I
Ohio.
attended this before.
Oh,
I
I
think
see.
this relay is from Chicago, right?
Yes,
You're
yes,
doing
yes.
it. Yeah,
Oh, you're
Chicago.
from Ohio.
Yeah, now I'm in Ohio. Yes.
Where in Ohio?
You know Columbus? Aswaji
Oh,
lives in Columbus.
oh,
It's the
okay.
1 hour away from Columbus. It's called Marion.
I see.
So,
Okay.
yeah, he does classes for us, Gita
Okay.
classes.
Oh, you take Gita class.
Yes, Ramayana Gita class and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, besides uh, Ashok sir, I have some friends in Columbus also.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
I know some of them, Dr. Shukla, all these people I know. I
Oh,
don't know
yes.
whom.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You are a physician too?
No, housewife.
A Sanath?
Just joined.
Not there. Okay. I see the name, but
Maybe his wife joining.
Namaste, Guruji.
I see picture coming. Ashwat garu.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram, Ashwat garu.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaskaram.
Namaste, Sudgaru.
Namaskaram. Namaskaram.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Namaskaram.
Namaha.
Namaskaram.
I see Shobha's number. Ashwat, I mean, Sanath is there. I'm not.
He may be joining.
Yeah, he'll be coming.
Give everybody a couple of minutes to
Okay.
join.
Okay. Good. Parthiban, do we have Sanath on the line?
Yes, he is on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
we can hear you, sir. Yes.
ఒక్క నిమిషం సార్. I will put it on
Okay.
this Zoom suddenly started uploading some update on the computer. I had everything
Hi,
set.
Shiva. Kumar.
Hmm.
Okay, good.
But
good.
we can see you and you are audible also.
Now I put it on the computer. I'll shut the phone off. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Everything is set here and YouTube live stream is also on.
Okay. You can see me, right?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, I can start anytime.
Parthiban, you tell when to start.
Yeah, we can start now, sir.
Sanath garu.
Sanatji, we can start now. Yeah.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I'll shut the phone off. I think.
It's echoing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Bharata America Punya Bhumyau Namo Namaha Agajanana Padmarkam Gajanana Aharnisham Anekadam Tam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Om Shri Shiva Parvati Durga Sita Rama Bharata Shatrugna Anjaneya Parvati Venkatesha Sameta Vinayaka Kartikeya Satyanarayana Radha Krishna Navagraha Devatabhyo Namaha Sanatana Dharma Paripalartham Sakutumbanam Sa Adhikarya
Kartikeya.
Nam Namo Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sakalau Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinahitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Namo Namaha. I'll hand over the mic to Sagar Garu.
Oh, thank you very much, Sanath garu. And thank you very much, all the audience, participants. Let me say a few words, and then I would like to have Shivaraman or Bhanuji, if they are their line, they can add up after what I said. Shivaraman,
Yes,
can you say
I can
something?
hear you. I am waiting for Banu Sharma. If he is unable to join, then I will, from the temple, I
Okay.
will.
Let me say a few words. it has been a great privilege for me personally and for the audience of the temple to have our speaker, our moderator, manager of Sri Ashwath Garu to give us a series of learning lectures throughout the year. We have been blessed with the knowledge and all the learning lessons from starting from last January at Sankranti time. It is very difficult to extend how much we have learned and how much we gained from the experience of lectures of Sri Asad. Again, I would like to say a few words about Sri Asad Garu, who has been our great teacher. He is our Rishi. He has been talking about the Rishi Parampara, but I should talk about his Parampara, where he comes from. All of you know, right now he is in Columbus, and he's been conducting Vedic lectures and around from Columbus. And he is originally from Bangalore, and he has a lineage of scholars in his family. His grandfather was a Vidwan in Mysore Maharaja's place, and he has been trained in Sanskrit under the Acharya Yajurveda Professor Ananta Krishnan of Bangalore, and he continues, he's the expert in Sanskrit and several Vedic literature. And his talks on Bhagavad Gita and on Veda have been extensively absorbed by the audience and the students across USA and perhaps around in India as well. So it has been a great pleasure, Ashwath Garu, for your contribution to us. At this time, you have been consistently given us 12 hours by every month an hour lecture, and we cannot thank you enough how much you have given us the knowledge and how much effort you have put. So on behalf of our organization, I now will ask Shivaraman. Hello, Shivaraman, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much, Sagar Garu. You have said more than enough. And I just want to echo the same and also want to second whatever you said. So there are no words to explain the fortune that we have to have Sri Aswath as our Acharya and Guru for this team and for the temple community. And we are looking forward to have his continuous service to the temple and the community. And as you know, ours is not a new temple, so it's one of the oldest temple. It has so many specialities. I will do that in a different time, but definitely I want to sincerely extend the temple's gratitude for our Acharya and looking forward to continue for his continuous service, and not just online teaching and mentoring, but also in person and physical appearance and service. Thank you very much, Aswath Garu. We are so fortunate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
We are offering
Shivaraman.
you.
Ashwath Garu, please
Chapman.
accept our flower. Speaking of, I wish you were here. I could hand over the flowers and a letter of thanks to you in hand. But this virtual video has given me opportunity to thank you. And
Could you move the flower to your right? Yeah, a little bit to your right.
Yeah.
Yes.
money
Yeah.
is
Thank you.
there.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
We can see now. Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
beautiful purple color flower.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shivakumar.
Thank you.
చెప్పండి we can start with Ashwath Garu.
Yes, thank you.
We should have said on behalf of the temple. Thank you.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi. Om योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिमानतोऽस्मि लये सम्बोधये चित्तं
Your video.
विक्षिप्तं शमयेत् पुनः सकाशायं विजानीयात् समप्राप्तं न चालयेत् ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः. As you all know, this is the part 2 of our study of the Rishi Parampara of the sage Bhagwan Patanjali. And we also have gone through the various rishis, and we have now come to Patanjali, and especially we are talking about Patanjali as a sculptor of the mind. So basically, this is Patanjali's contribution to the study of the mind, which in Sanskrit is called chitta. So just to give a little background, so you may recall that we started off the Rishi Parampara with Bhagavan Shiva, and Shiva was doing the cosmic dance, the Tandava Nritya in at Chidambaram, and that was where Patanjali Maharshi and Vyagrapada actually witnessed the great dance of Shiva. And that was when Patanjali was inspired that whatever he learned and observed, that he has got to record for posterity in the form of sutras. So we have gone over the that encounter of Bhagavan Patanjali with Bhagavan Shiva and how he received the knowledge from his dance. So then now Patanjali is contemplating on what is required to make our human life successful. And not only the human life successful, the person who is living also must at one point of time say, I have lived a well-lived life. So it is not it's not a social recognition of how well he has lived. He himself has to think that I have lived a worthwhile life. So in that context, he is now observing, Patanjali Maharshi is observing. So he saw Shiva's dance. And then Shiva was extraordinarily active. He was dancing with grace, there was charm, there was beauty, and everybody had to jump in, and we saw that Nandi himself plays the drums, and then everybody participates in the music and in the dance, and absolutely charming, absolutely beautiful. And Patanjali was noticing Bhagavan Shiva's face also. So he found that Bhagavan Shiva's face was a very picture of peace and tranquility. Absolutely, absolutely calm. In spite of that energetic activity that is going on, not a single nerve of his face was showing strain. How could Shiva attain that state of peace and show it in his face? Patanjali thought, oh, it must be his super fit body. The very picture of health and fitness is a very, very good source of one's mental peace. This is true to a very great extent, that whenever we are absolutely healthy and the body is in very good condition, at that point of time, there is a certain amount of joy, happiness, and peace in the mind of the person. But then Patanjali realized that good health and longevity need not necessarily bring peace of mind. On a personal note, my father-in-law lived to 95 years old. he was really and a picture of good health. Except probably in the last couple of weeks of his life, he always had extraordinarily good health. He had many times told me with great sadness that he had to witness the loss and death of many of his close friends. He had to be witness to the death of his relatives, including he had to witness his son-in-law's death, who was actually very close to him, both physically as well as emotionally. He was very close to him. And then he lost his peace. In the last few years of my visiting with him, I could see that all this sorrow of long lost friendships and relatives was weighing upon him, and there was really no peace in just being a healthy long life. So this is what we have discovered during our own life, but Patanjali also obviously found this. Then he thought, I wrote a book on medicine, and then of course, and all the ways in which we can keep ourselves healthy and strong, which is very essential. Perhaps if we improved our communication and interpersonal skills, along with good health, develop wholesome and meaningful relationships, and then people will love and respect us, and I will have love for a lot of people. Probably that can lead to peace. So he wrote a book on grammar, saying that, okay, let's improve our communication skills. Let's see how we can endear ourselves to our fellow beings, both by speech and by conduct. So he gave us the beautiful commentary on Panini's HTGC called Mahabhashya. That book is so extraordinary. Just to give you an idea of its reputation, there is a Sanskrit verse which says, either you become an emperor of a country or you read Mahabhashya of Patanjali. So you can imagine the status that his work on grammar, it is equal to being an emperor of a nation. So then he thought, is that going to give mental peace? Then he looked around. He saw that the most erudite and learned person was Bhagavan Vedavyasa. We know Vedavyasa, we talked about it in this series. He was one of the earliest rishis we discussed on Vedavyasa. And what was the tragedy or the tragic life of Bhagavan Vedavyasa? Though he was very prolific, he had to witness the decimation of his own progeny. If you look at Mahabharata, 90% of all the characters of Mahabharata are from his blood. So he sees the death of his own son, grandson, grandchildren, great-grandchildren right in front of himself. So what is the use of erudition? What is the use of learning? Because ultimately, even Vedavyasa actually also was weeping and said, what is there in this life? Everything is just a huge wasteland. So Patanjali started thinking, why is it happening like this? What am I missing? There is something I'm missing here. Then he concluded, it's not really, the problem is not really in the body. It's really not in relationships, but it is in our mind, the chitta. So that was the conclusion. Then he thought, let me research chitta. So what is the first observation that he did? You remember in our last class, we picked up the metaphor of a sculptor. And I picked up the name Michelangelo. How Michelangelo saw the sculpture in a block of marble. Patanjali also in his tapas, saw a beautiful, peaceful, liberated Chaitanyam full of awareness hidden in this carvable block of chitta. Please note, it's a carvable block. It is not a stone which cannot be carved. Chitta is like soapstone. Soapstone is relatively easy to carve. Not only that, it lasts for a long time. A lot of soapstones of sculpture you will see, especially in Karnataka, and they have been standing there for over 1,000 years. It is soft enough for carving, but long-lasting, great longevity is there if somehow we are able to sculpt this beautiful mind. And then an exquisite shape can be brought out from this block called chitta. So he started thinking about chitta. This summary of what is peaceful mind, what is the hallmark of a peaceful mind, I refer you to the Sabha Parva of Mahabharata. So in the Mahabharata, it summarizes Adrohaha sarvabhuteshu karmana manasa gira anugrahascha danamcha satam dharma sanatana. So this is a classic definition of what is Sanatana Dharma. In fact, if I may, I also recommend using this verse as a top banner in our flyers. The definition of Sanatana Dharma. Adrohaha sarvabhuteshu. With no malice towards any living being, either by our action, karmana, or with our mind, manasa, or with our speech, gira, and then anugrahascha, constantly display acts of kindness, and then danancha, charity. Yeah, that in fact it is charitable disposition. It is not charity, but it's a charitable disposition. There are a number of ways we can do dana. We can give our time, we can give our knowledge, we can give our good counsel. So danam ja. This, and then emulating the dharma as practiced by the noble persons. So this is Sanatana Dharma. Then so we have a kind of a contour of the sculpture that we have to carve out of this block called the mind. Now, having determined this objective, Patanjali then thought, what is the purpose of my writing anything? I have already written a book on medicine, I have written a book on grammar, now I am about to write a book on mind. What is the use of all these things? Then he recalled the scriptural verse, Shamaya sarva shastrani vihitani manishinaha sa eva sarva shastrajnaha yasya shantam manasada. Shamaya sarva shastrani. It is for the sake of peace of mind. All the scriptures have been given to us by our sages, Vihitani Manishinaha. What about a person who has not studied any of the scriptures whatsoever, but his mind is calm and peaceful? Shastra says he has to be recognized as a person who is learned in all the Shastras. Sayeva Sarva Shastrajna. Yasya Shantam Manasada. Whose mind is always peaceful. He is the really learned person. A learned person is not necessarily a scholar who has read or written 10 books. So therefore, the objective is determined. We have to discover something by which I can actually become peaceful in mind and a lasting peaceful in mind, in spite of whatever challenges and difficulties arise in our life? Can I keep my mind tranquil? Again, peace of mind and tranquility of mind are slightly different. It is to keep the mind shantam manasada, tranquility. So he introduced 3 processes for that. He called it as Kriya Yoga, Tapaswadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhanani, Kriya Yoga. Now he said, this is the sequence in which you have got to practice. You start with tapas first, and follow tapas by means of study, swadhyaya. Follow the study with the Ishvara Pranidhana. What is the starting point? Starting point is tapas. So what is this tapas? This word is derived from the Sanskrit root to think, tapa alochane, to contemplate. Then the question arises, what should I think about? So we have to look up again to our sages to help us, our Purvacharyas. Bhagavan Patanjali had the benefit of knowing, studying Bhagavan Vedavyasa, and then he expands on the project of tapas. And Vedavyasa writes a commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Look at this. Patanjali looks at Vedavyasa for inspiration. Vedavyasa in turn writes a commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and then in Yoga Sutra, Bhagavan Vedavyasa gives us the method of doing meditation, method of tapas. First point he makes, a person without self-discipline cannot achieve perfection or liberation or peace of mind. So the very first essential point is to cultivate a disciplined life. Second point Vyasa makes, Chitta is like a flowing stream. Any stream that is flowing always will be contaminated with many, many impurities. Besides, it always flows down the gradient. So he said, look at this Chitta. Chitta Nadi Nama. Chitta Nadi Nama. Chitta is like a river. Like a river, it will always be flowing downwards in a down gradient towards papa, negativity, and then stress, worry, anxiety, fear. That's the nature of mind. And I'm sure all of us can relate to that. If we let our imagination out of our control, it will only think of worse things. Vahati papaya. Then also it will collect a lot of moss. And that water becomes unfit to drink. In other words, that chitta is unfit for our use. So it needs a perfection. For how long this flow of this chitta been contaminated? Yoga Sutra says, from the beginningless time. From Anadi. What are those impurities? Those impurities are called as vasanas and kleshas. Vasana means all the impressions that we have collected from birth to birth. And kleshas are there where they are, in kleshas we have got ignorance, avidya, we have ego, asmita, we have got attachment, raga, we have got aversion, dvesha, and we are clinging to things. And the biggest clinging that we have is to our own life. Only when these kleshas or afflictions are weakened, we can achieve tranquility of mind and liberation. Please note that I use the word weakened. These afflictions are to be weakened, which means that we cannot destroy completely. There is no purest water. The best potable water has got contamination. The only thing is we have built up a resistance in our body to remain healthy in spite of drinking the jewel filtered water. Like that mind is also. But I said weakened. What do I mean by weakened? They will lose the power to disturb us. So for a sculpted mind, it is called klesha tanukarana. Tanukarana means weakening. This person will have weakened his kleshas. Let's follow the career of one great individual who has gone through this practice. And he has been immortalized in Ramayana. His name is Vishwamitra, the sage Vishwamitra. He exemplifies the yogi who took up the 3 projects of Kriya Yoga, Tapaswadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhanani. You know the story. I'm not going to repeat the story, but we'll take up the aspects of the story for understanding the trend of thought, the logic of thought of Bhagavan Patanjali. The first issue for Kaushika, his name was Kaushika before he became Vishwamitra, was ignorance. The tragedy about ignorance is that a person who doesn't know says he knows. That's the tragedy of ignorance. That is why Kenopanishad says, anyone who says that he knows really does not know. And therefore this chitta, this ignorance has to be cleansed. And therefore, what Vishwamitra did was, his name was actually Gadhiputra Kaushika, son of Gadhi, Kaushika. First discovery, which Patanjali actually codifies, is what is the nature of objects. Objects have a magnetic presence. They pull the mind towards the object. Please think, friends. Does the mind pull the object into itself, or the object pulls the mind to themselves? Patanjali Maharshi establishes that it is the objects that pull the mind, it is not the mind that actually pulls the object. You would have, if you go to the grocery store, have you observed how they stock the things in the shelves? Whatever the merchant wants to sell, because of the margin of profit or the deep discount that the wholesaler gives, will be at your eye level. That is how in a grocery store things are arranged. Things with lot of sugar and sweet, where do they place that? They place it at the eye level of a 4-year-old child. So who attracts whom? If you carefully see that display, it is the object that at the proximity of the object that is attracts the mind. Patanjali calls this process as uparaga. Uparaga means coloring of the mind. So the objects will come and color my mind. And whenever this colored mind is there, that is when it creates ego. And this ego is an internal disturbance. And this internal disturbance of the ego surfaces in the mind as attachment. So Kaushika thought that he could drag the cow Nandini by force. If he was the Vishwamitra and not Kaushika, what would have been his observation about the Nandini cow? He would have said, after all, this is in my kingdom. And Vasishtha is a noble sage. If at all the kingdom needs anything, such as feeding 10,000 people, such as creating an army of people, I can always ask. I don't have to possess this cow. But you see, there was the Asmita, and therefore he had started fighting. And finally, what did he discover? He discovered that the spiritual power of Vasishtha is greater than the military prowess of Vishwamitra. And then he says, Dikshat Prabalam Brahma Tejo Balam Balam. So when we do tapas, what do we discover? We discover that our abilities can be expanded. It is possible to change. So metaphorically, what Kaushika does is he decides to change the location. Instead of changing his mind, he says, well, let me go out of this area which is so disturbing. Let me go somewhere else. So sometimes our comfort zone is a hindrance for in our growth. So he broke the comfort zone, and then he deliberately embraced change, and then he goes south and practices penance. So this also you can find Patanjali indicating we must get out of our comfort zone if we have to grow spiritually. Did Kaushika had any idea of where to start, how to progress, and what is the end result? Only vaguely. We take up a spiritual life with a general idea of outcome. I want to be peaceful. I want to be a devotee of God. The beauty of tapas is as we continue, we are able to identify the obstacles. And Patanjali calls the obstacles as antarayas. And we will work to overcome them. And those antarayas are where we have to confront 6 powerful forces, 6 powerful enemies. And they are called as Shadvargas: Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So Kaushika moves south. And in the south, we got the problem with Trishanku. And he wanted to fight, Kaushika wanted to fight with Indra and send Trishanku in person, which is a display of arrogance. He's interfering with a cosmic law that is called Mada, one of the obstacles to overcome. So it took a whole period of 10 years. His penance was destroyed because of this Mada. So he decided, I'm going to, from south, I'm going to move west. So he moves west. And he chose an isolated place. And the place he chose was in the present day Pushkar in Rajasthan. That was where he started his penance in the west. And there he comes and encounters Menaka. So another problem, Arishadvargas, the Kama strikes, and he lost another 10 years of his precious life. Tapas is not just to sit in a posture. It is not just controlling the breath, and it is not just withdrawal of the senses. These are called as asana, pranayama, pratyahara, the 3 limbs of the 8-part yoga that you see in the 2nd chapter of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. It is not only that, it is also cultivating virtues. Every single virtue that we cultivate neutralizes the corresponding negative qualities. Patanjali calls this process as Pratipaksha Bhavana, the 2nd chapter, 33rd sutra. Vitarka Bhavane Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So you have got a countermeasure. So what countermeasure can we do? What countermeasure can we take? This is where Shastra again comes back and says, as I quoted earlier, Adrohas Sarvabhuteshu Karmana Manasa Gira Anugrahascha Danancha Satam Dharma Sanatanaha. Follow Sanatana Dharma. We have to have a clear understanding of what really is Sanatana Dharma. These are the Sanatana Dharmas. And then with this, he said, okay, let me expand this. Then Patanjali Maharshi started expanding this. And in the meanwhile, our friend Kaushika went to the in west. He got disturbed by Menaka. He goes to north. And when he goes to north, he sets up his ashrama on the banks of the Kaushiki river. The Kaushika River today is called the Kosi River. You know, Kosi River flows from Tibet into Bihar, and it was in Bihar he set up his ashrama and few more years of tapas. And in these tapas, he started developing the Sanatana Dharma that I am talking about. Adroha Sarvabhutanam, etc. It is not just physically he was tormenting his body. He was developing these virtues. And therefore Brahma appears and says, I'll declare you as a Maharshi. I want to become a Brahmarshi, the highest order of Rishi. Why are you making me only Maharshi? Then Brahma says, only somebody else can see my defect and point it out. If the same thing Brahma had said 40 years ago, Kaushika would have picked up a war with Brahma. But a lot of maturity has done. Now that criticism, he takes it in very, very positive manner. And then he asks, why am I not a Brahmarshi? Then Brahma says, you have not yet conquered your senses. Why? I have conquered the senses. I am no more attracted to women. I am no more attracted to the riches. No, that is not enough. Let us see. Conquering senses is not limited to just celibacy. It is the perfection of 8 qualities of a noble person. And these 8 qualities are embedded in Patanjali's 33rd Sutra in chapter 1 as Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. That is friendship, compassion, always a disposition of joyous nature and indifference to negative things. And this had to be expanded. For doing that, we have to study the Dharma Shastra. So he looks at Gautama Dharma Shastra, and in Dharma Shastra, chapter 8, Sutra number 21, there is a beautiful statement. Here they pick up 8 important qualities. Daya Sarva Bhuteshu. The first quality that is required is absolute compassion for all living beings. Daya Sarva Bhuteshu. Here is where the sculptor starts shaping the contours of the image. By doing the Sanatana Dharma, what we have done is we have created a rough outline, that is all. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya have been contained, which means those impurities are chipped away, and we now have a crude image, and this crude image has got to be shaped. The contours have to be shaped. Lines must start showing beautifully. So, first thing that he looked was, I must cultivate the act of compassion. Now this brings up a question. Should compassion be imported from something outside of me? Or is there something within me and then I can actually nourish and nurse and then let that grow? Now again, Shastra comes to our help. If you look at the Devi Mahatmya, the Chandi, we have got a beautiful, beautiful prayer. I'm sure all of you know this. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Dayarupena Samsthita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Kshanti Rupena Samsthita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Like that, the whole prayer goes. What it is doing is, my dear man, this compassion is inherent not in just human beings, in every living being. Daya sarva bhuteshu. Everywhere, everyone has got. And let's identify what is it that inside this block of chitta, which has now trying to get into a shape, and the contours that we have got to chisel out. That is, first is daya, compassion. The second is forbearance. It is called kshanti. And the third is freedom from envy, anasuya. And the fourth one is purity or shaucham. And the fifth one is called mangalyam. all the time we should be always speaking auspiciousness. You should say good things only, because our heritage says there are tatastu devatas. The tatastu devatas will always be saying tatastu tatastu. Suppose whatever we wish, the devatas will say so be it. And therefore we should choose what we utter very carefully. That's called mangalyam. And a life of akarpanyam, there should be no pettiness in the conduct, and aspruha, not coveting. So Kaushika's tapas was understanding and bringing these out from within himself. So he is actually finishing the contours of his personality. Then his control on senses was put to test. Remember, this is what Brahma said, you have got to master your sense organs. Then that is when Rambha comes. And when Rambha comes to disturb him, another Apsara comes to disturb him, he gets angry and gives a curse, saying, you become a stone. And one of the negative qualities of the Chitta is Krodha, anger. And that acted up. Catches himself up. Oh my God, I was able to overcome carnal desire. Now I got trapped in anger. Another couple of decades of tapas to overcome anger also. The final test comes. Vishwamitra takes to a penance where he will also go into starvation for a long period of time, probably a couple of weeks. And after that, he decides, okay, let me now eat a little morsel of food. And he takes that bowl of food. Right then, Indra comes in the form of a Brahmana and says, Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi, please give me. In fact, here, Bhavan Bhikshan Dadatu, we have to use the right gender. Sir, please give me Bhiksha. The maturity of this cultured, sculpted mind, he hands over that food. And then in the most peaceful manner, with absolutely no disturbance of the mind, then he becomes a Brahmarshi. He becomes Vishwamitra, a universal friend, and he gets the blessing of Devi Gayatri. And both the Rishi, Vishwamitra, and the mantra Gayatri, they become immortal. The perfectly sculpted Chitta was ready. Patanjali Maharshi says, what happens at this state? At this state, the past vasanas and samskaras lose their power over the yogi. As I said, you cannot neutralize your vasanas and samskaras. You cannot say, I'm going to completely erase my slate. It will always be there. Only difference is it will actually become ineffective. They will lose their power of influence over us. So in the process, he had to see the 8 qualities in a little more granularity. So we saw that Daya Sarvabhuteshu is something that is inherent in every human being. So we have to mine it out. Then what about Kshanti or forgiveness? And this forbearance and forgiveness, it is control of anger and the urge to retaliate. That's what he learned last. This is especially needed towards our relatives and friends. Because what happens, the closer we are, the more liberties we take and the more we hurt our people. This Kshanti gets compromised. And therefore, we have to actually think about correcting the person. It is not to have revenge against the person. So patience is not a weakness. Patience is actually a strength. So you can see Vasishta Maharshi as a Brahmarshi, how he forbears all the attacks of Vishwamitra, of Kaushika. Actually, did you know that he killed all his children? In fact, in one of the classes the other day, I was speaking. His son Shakti was able to give only 3 mantras in the Rigveda because his life was cut short because of anger. If only he had lived, probably he would have given us as many mantras as his father Vasishta gave. Vasishta Maharshi himself, how did he treat Vishwamitra? Vishwamitra discovered the Gayatri mantra and he brings the mantra to Vasishta Maharshi and shows it. And that evening, Vasishta Maharshi sits and he is contemplating on this Gayatri mantra. He was so absorbed in it. It was probably past midnight. He's just sitting and reveling in the meaning of Gayatri mantra, which we saw in our earlier talk in this series. Arundhati, Vasishta's wife, comes there. And then she tells her husband, why is it you are awake? In the morning, you had to get up in Brahmi Muhurta, which is like 3:30 a.m. And now it is past 12 o'clock. You are still up. And why is it that tears are flowing in your eyes? Then he says, look what Vishwamitra has done. He has given the greatest mantra. He will surpass my name and fame. Remember, Vasishta Maharshi is the one who gave us the Triyambaka Mejamahe Mahamrutyunjaya mantra, 2 immortal rishis. He surpasses my reputation forever. Arundhati is incredulous. She says, he is the actually murderer of all our children, and you are sitting here and then reveling about him and then raving about his achievement. This is Adveshta Sarvabhutana. He replies, that was all karma. That is all. The way in which somebody has to die, they have to die in some way or the other. That is all. We cannot hold anybody for responsibility. God used Vishwamitra as a means, and he has paid his dues. For the last 50 years, he has been doing tapas. He gave up all the pleasures of his kingdom. He has not touched a woman in all these years. I mean, just kama, nothing. He has lived such a celibate and such a disciplined life. So he has lived. So I have got to acknowledge that this is kshanti, this is forgiveness. Condemn the act, not the person. Anasuya is freedom from envy. In the glory of Ishvara, everyone is endowed with some talent or the other. We expect others to realize our talent. Anasuya is not only freedom from envy, but also extolling the qualities of others. Na gunan gunino hanti, says Shastravakya, which means the virtuous do not put down the quality of others. Stauti mandagunanapi. A virtuous man, an enlightened person, appreciates even if there is a little bit of quality in another person. Just as you would for your 4-year-old child who writes his name in the birthday card he gives you. It is by no means a perfect writing. But do you put down this 4-year child? You look at it as cute. Na anya dosheshu ramate. The person doesn't enjoy talking about the defects of others. Sa anasuya prakirtita. This is the definition of freedom from envy. Na gunan gunino hanti. Stauti mandagunanapi. Na anya dosheshu ramate. Sa anasuya prakirtita. Now you can see in the life of Vasishta, in the life of Vyasa, in the life of Vishwamitra, in many lives that we know, with how they practice this Anasuya. The next is about cleanliness. Now you see Vishwamitra demonstrating that, as many others, Dravya Shaucham, Manas Shaucham, Vak Shaucham, Kayakam Tata, Shaucham Chaturvidham Proktam, Rishibhi Tattvadarshibhi. 4 kinds of purity are there. Dravya Shaucham, absolute uprightness when it comes to money. And then Manashaucham, keeping the mind pure. Vakshaucham, keeping the speech pure. And of course, bodily. These are the 4 important qualities of Shaucha. You can see why Vishwamitra sets up his ashrama on the banks of a river. Because the rivers of ancient India always flew so very clearly. Many of you who know Ramayana, in Ramayana, when Valmiki Maharshi with his student Bharadwaja comes to Tamasa river, he says something so electrifying. Bharadwaja, look at this Tamasa river. It is flowing so clearly. San Manushya Manoyatha. The clear waters, I can see the bottom of this river, like the mind of a noble person. San Manushya Manoyatha. And all this has to be done effortlessly, anayasa. Many things I am talking about, people might think, oh, such a hard work has to be done. Not at all. Because you just take it and just try it. When it becomes a second nature to be free from envy, when it becomes a second nature to be compassionate, where is the stress? It is your natural. Swami Ramadas, there is a beautiful story about him. It seems he was taking a bath in the river, and in that river, there was a spit, and it washed off a scorpion, and the scorpion came and stung him. Immediately, Swamiji takes this scorpion and puts it in high ground. One more wave comes, again the scorpion is washed in, and again the scorpion stings him, and again Swamiji puts it on the high ground, and his students are incredulous, and they ask him, why are you doing it again and again? And Swamiji replied, to sting is its nature, to save is my nature. Absolutely anayasa, no stress whatsoever. And then I talked about Mangalam, and then freedom from any attachment, aspruha, freedom from hanging on, from lingering about our possessions. And this is the quality of tapas. Then there is also the third practice to be done, which is Ishvara Pranidhana. Patanjali Maharshi is coming from the Sankhya school of duality. We talked about Kapila Maharshi in our series. I think it was not the previous one, but the one before, in which the Sankhya system, Kapila Maharshi acknowledges God, but Sankhya system itself, there is also a Nirishvara Sankhya, which means they say there is no need for God, because if you have got all these 8 qualities, then what is the need for God? Because you are God. At that point of time, you don't need anybody to worship. But then Patanjali Maharshi disagreed with that, and he said, no, you should have a deity to worship. And therefore, he suggested that there must be Ishvara Pranidhana. The reason for Ishvara Pranidhana, the reason for worship of Ishvara is to become like Ishvara. We emulate a role model to become like the role model. So that is why he says Ishvara Pranidhana is doing japa or contemplation on Ishvara, and he actually has a beautiful sutra itself, Tad Japaha Tadartha Bhavanam. That is, doing meditation upon Ishvara is to become like Ishvara. This is the crowning attainment of a yogi that Patanjali Maharshi identifies. Crowning. And this is exactly what the Bhagavad Gita also talks about. That is, this person has become a Jnani Bhakta, perfectly carved figure, which lasts for millennia. Such a chitta has been formed. And in the Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, you can see Krishna also acknowledges Jnani Nityayuktaha Ekabhaktihi Vishishyate. And he also says, Jnani tu Atmaiva iti me matam. And Jnani is no different from me. He is me. Jnani is Krishna himself. And becoming one with Ishvara is moksha, is liberation. And here you have in the sculpture of the chitta, what is its shape? The shape of that is Bhagavan Mahavishnu, Bhagavan Sadashiva, sitting in peaceful meditation. That is the state of his mind. With that, we'll conclude our overview and the study of Bhagavan Patanjali. Thank you very much. Very, very grateful for having me here today. Thank you.
Okay.
Ashok Garu, thank you very much for your excellent.
Thank you.
Made us understand the highly philosophical approach of Patanjali to understand the mind and understand what we are and what we have to learn. It's extremely wonderful to get such an education from you, and very, very, very thankful to you.
Thank you.
If any questions, we can send you back. Can we?
Yeah, Sanat, you are unmute. You are at unmute.
Unmute.
If anybody has questions, please ask. Anybody has questions, please ask us.
Ashok Garu, how much of this information or this knowledge has been incorporated into current Western psychology? Looks like if anybody or any scientist has read all these Patanjali's sutras, it will give the enormous background to really understand how people behave and how they can be modified. Do you have any idea if these principles have been absorbed by the Western scholars?
We have Dr. Shukla here is a psychiatrist and he has been practicing psychiatry for decades. So he might have some insight into what Western psychology have, whether it has used any of these. Dr. Shukla?
See, Western psychology is focused mainly outside, and the Shuddhikaran, see, not much focus is given on Chitta Shuddhi. And modern psychiatry, like the medical part of it, is basically a reduction of symptoms. So main focus is of Freud was in to understand your vasanas. So he did some work but could not finish, and Jung did do some work. But mainly then it is going towards thinking and behavior, changing thinking and behavior. So it's not, Chitta Shuddhi is not, it's you, it's not me. So unless it is me, I is capital and you is not. But in Western psychology, still focuses on you, less on me.
And probably psychology, psychiatry practice is more for compromised minds and not for a healthy mind. And Patanjali's object was to make the healthy mind a perfect mind. Raju Garu, Dr. Raju has.
Namaskaram. Pranams, Ashwati Garu. So nice of you to bring this Rishi concepts and introduce Patanjali to us in such a way as a sculptor. And as Shatananda says about Vishwamitra, Esha Vigrahavan Tapaha. And you sculpted Vishwamitra Vigraha in this 1 hour so beautifully. And we cannot forget this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Ashwat Garu. We will continue to seek your knowledge and lectures in the year coming, and wish you all. Thank you very much, and I wish everybody a happy New Year, even though 1 week ahead,
Yes.
couple of weeks ahead, but we have been blessed all through the year, and we'll continue to look forward to your lectures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Conclude with a prayer, Purna sir.
Namaskar.
Thank you, Ashwat Garu.
Thank
Namaste.
you.
Conclude
We'll
with
decide about the next month's subject. Then
Yeah, we'll be.
You can conclude with Ashwat Garu.
We'll continue to correspond with you and
Sure.
next lectures.
Thank you.
Okay, Sanat Garu? Sanat?
We'll conclude with a
We'll
Shanti Mantra.
continue to correspond.
Conclusion prayer. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ashwat.
His phone is not.
Ashwat ji.
We'll conclude with a Shanti Mantra.
Yeah.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. And thank you, Parthiban sir, for your invaluable support, and we couldn't do anything without your help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you.